Just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has come to the channel and contributed. Um, we've seen a great conversation going on. Folks a lot smarter than me have come here and weighed in, people that know a lot more about this than I do, and I appreciate it. The channel continues to grow exponentially, and it's all because of you. Um, I'm just a guy with an opinion. That's what I've always been. So I'm going to continue to try to make videos that are accurate and short and to the point. So that having been said, folks, I'm going to reiterate one more time. If you're going to come here and use foul language, hate, attack people, it's just going to be delete, block. I don't have any giant desire for huge numbers here. Um, if I lose people, I lose people. I really don't have an issue with that. So I brought this up on the screen because I think it's something that's very relevant. It was and still is, a movement that would allow the electoral votes in the states to be reflected proportionally. And what this goes to is the will of the people versus the will of the majority. And that's a very, very important thing in this election, because we always see Trump voter come here with his comments, and almost in every single one of them we see the will of the people, the will of the people, the will of the people. We don't. We absolutely don't see the will of the people in the Electoral College, and there's 3 or 4 ways that we can show this. What we see is the will of the alleged majority. I don't think any Trump voter can make the allegation that if Donald Trump had run by himself as an independent, that he would have received anywhere near as many votes as he did. He went into a party, he hijacked the party, and I have laid all that out in other videos, and because he knows he needed the R by his name. And the reason he needed that R by his name is because he needed people to vote for him who didn't want to vote for him. He needed people to vote for him who didn't want to vote for him, because they had fallen prey to this programming that you either had to vote for R or you had to vote for D. And because the programming had been so deep that D represented the end of the world or nuclear war, they couldn't bring themselves to think about a third party, because they eventually wanted to say that they voted for the winner of whoever it was, and that would be R or D, because of what the media puts out, this false narrative that either not voting or voting for anything other than R or D makes you irrelevant. So that's kind of funny. They have a cons and pro list here, and I don't know if anybody's been reading it, but the cons are a proportional allocation of the electoral vote would create the possibility of electing a president without popular support. Well, it's already done that. 2, the risk of so-called faithless electors. Can we figure out what 12 vote for one candidate and what 8 vote for another? Well, we see that anyway. Questions remain about what to do with votes that do not break evenly, 55%, 45% with 10 electoral votes, or 51-49. I think that's pretty simple. You would just use the popular vote in that particular case, and you would just see where that vote came from, what area of the state, and then you would allocate accordingly. Risks failure to accurately reflect the national popular will and does not stop state inequality in EC. Well, I think that we can see that has already happened without proportional allocation. 65 million for Hillary Clinton, 62 million for Donald Trump. Risks candidates focusing on states with big populations. Why go to Montana, where you would get at most 2 or 3, when you can go aim for 30 in California? Well, you see, once again, here you go. This has already happened. So all of the cons of this happened in the Electoral College anyway, and this year proved it. And all the pros here, eliminates the winner-take-all system. I think that actually would be the crux of it. The winner-take-all system does not reflect the will of the people. It only reflects the will of the majority. And the reason I keep bringing up the will of the majority is because of a quote of Thomas Jefferson. All, too, will bear in mind this sacred principle, that though the will of the majority is in all cases to prevail, that will to be rightful must be reasonable, that the minority possess in their equal rights, which equal law must protect, and to violate would be oppression. So, I think that we can pretty much put to bed any argument Trump voter has that they represent the will of the majority, because when we look at the popular vote, that's not the case. When we look at this chart here, we can see clearly that it takes only 205,000 votes for a Republican to equal 1 electoral vote, but it takes 283,000 votes to get 1 electoral vote for a Democrat. So they have to show up in numbers 33% higher just to get the same representation. The Electoral College is clearly been gerrymandered to help Republicans. And there's no way you can look at these numbers and say that. And Trump voter, even if you want to go down there in the comments and start typing about all the illegals, if you go to the Washington Post, they talked about the Latino turnout and that it was 80-20 for Hillary Clinton. So you would have to take your number of 3 million and apply that 80-20 rule to it. So you would need to allege 4 million almost illegals voted in this election. And I don't see proof that 1 million or 100,000 has voted. So to continue to make this allegation over and over and over again is just disingenuous. And like I said, you could still take almost 3 million votes away from Hillary Clinton in this election, and she would still have a tie. And it wouldn't really be a tie given the huge extra representation Republicans have. So I don't think that in any way, shape, or form, a Trump voter can go forward say that if Donald Trump ran, that he would have received the majority of votes, either from the Republicans or from the population as a whole. Because we can clearly see that there were 13 other candidates and not a single one up there, well, maybe Christie and maybe Giuliani, had any level of support for him at all. So this is not an issue of Democrat versus Republican. This is an issue of Republican, actual Republican, versus anarchist, which is what Donald Trump is. He's an anarchist. Because what he did is he came in and he told you to no longer listen to the leaders of your party. He came in, he used his Twitter account to turn you against the leaders of your own party. He never talks about conservatism. Have you ever seen the man get up and talk about the why conservatism is a better plan for America than liberalism? No. All he does is call names to liberals. He doesn't talk about it at length like you could hear Rush Limbaugh talk about it, or you could hear even Glenn Beck talk about it, at length about why they believe in conservatism. You'll never hear this from Donald Trump. All you'll hear Donald Trump say is that he, by name, is the savior. Not conservatism, not republicanism, him. And that's the very definition of demagoguery. And that's why he's facing this mounting effort to have him not be the president of the United States from within the party that he hijacked. So you could take away all of the things that Democrats are doing and you would still have an issue. This isn't about Republicans being traitors. This is actually about Trump voter being a traitor. Because they allowed a guy to come in who wasn't a Republican, who was an anarchist, who wasn't a Republican so many times in his life. He supported the Democrats when they were trying to knock George W. Bush out of office when he won the close election in 2000 against Al Gore. In 1991, he railed against Ronald Reagan for the tax cuts. I mean, if you actually would go and look into this man's history and see what he's done in the past, he was the number one contributor to the mayoral campaign of Rahm Emanuel. He supported Harry Reid financially. I mean, I don't know how you can say that anybody who's done that at any point in their history could be a Republican or be a conservative. So this is about anarchy within the Republican Party. This is about the alt-right attempting a coup. So last thing, talking about the issues up in Washington and Colorado. No one has made any allegation that the Hamilton electors are going to be able to avoid fines. They're going to be fined. They're absolutely going to be fined, and that's within state law. To their peril, and I've covered that in my last video. The issue here is the difference between legal and constitutional. A state can make any law saying anything they want to, whether it actually agrees with the U.S. Constitution or not. When the two are put up against each other, the Supremacy Clause clearly rules always in favor of the U.S. Constitution. So, and like I've said before, if it were so easy, as alleged by some people here, to just remove and replace, to just make it a clerical thing, to say, okay, he didn't vote the way he was supposed to, we're just going to put this other guy in and he's going to change it, done and done. If that were the case, the John Ewards vote wouldn't still be of the official record up in Minnesota when the guy accidentally wrote in the vice president's name misspelled on the presidential ballot. That would be something you would think in Minnesota would be an easy fix, but they couldn't do it because they know once that vote is cast, it stands. That's why they need to threaten with jail, threaten with fines, because it's not something where you can just go in and replace an elector and change his vote. If something would happen to an elector, or he would die, or he would be unable to fulfill his duty, then of course there is provision to bring in somebody, because that would bring the total number of electors down below the number of electors that they're allowed. So, they're taking one part of the law and twisting it to make you think one thing, because they're terrified of this. So is Donald Trump. That's why he has, come out and threatened sanction for this. If it were simply just a clerical thing where they could remove and replace, they wouldn't have any reason to fine these people. They wouldn't have any reason to come out in this way against them. Nor would they have any reason to give these people a ballot with anybody else's name on it. Why wouldn't they just simply give them a ballot with Donald Trump's name on it and have them just check the box? If this were the case, if anything else were completely, unconstitutional, why would they do this? So if you just look at logic on its face, it doesn't agree with anything that's being said in that vein. So thank you again for the patience, folks. I know it's been a day or so since I put anything up. Like I said, life being what it is, sometimes you just got to deal with life. But keep the faith, folks. Keep your heads up. I will try to put these up as much as I can, running up to the 19th. We're going to see a lot of bluster. We've seen the mainstream media pick it up. And we're going to see numbers probably a lot larger than we've even alleged here. So, God bless. Thank you.